Add some sparkle to your Saturday night.
It was absolutely a joy to watch beautiful dancing.
What inspiring performances from everybody.
Putting on the glitz and Strictly Come Dancing. Saturday at 6:40 on BBC One.
The fashion and textile industry generates more greenhouse gas than international flights and shipping. A hairdryer alone accounts for 25 kilos of carbon dioxide a year. But we are trying to find a solution. Trying really, really, really hard. The Fashion Fix podcast, the looking good, doing good, feeling good podcast. Listen now on the BBC Sounds app.
Ramblers of Rotherham, choirs of Cleethorpes, hoopers of Hume.
Where?
1, 2, 3!
It's that time of year again. Time to get together and fundraise for children in need. That's right, gallopers of Gretna, gamers of Galbally, quizzers of
Queenborough.
Everyone, everywhere. Get together to help children in your local area. Get your supporter kit today.
7 World, 1 Planet. Starts Sunday, the 27th of October on BBC One and BBC iPlayer.
The BBC News at 6 now with George Alagaya in the studio and Hugh Edwards in Brussels.
Tonight at 6, we're at the European Summit in Brussels, where a new Brexit deal has been agreed between the UK and the EU. Boris Johnson says it's a great deal, which allows the UK to take back control, but he still has to get MPs at Westminster to back it.
I hope very much now, speaking of elected representatives, that my fellow MPs in Westminster do now come together to get Brexit done, to get this excellent deal over the line.
But the support of Northern Ireland's DUP is crucial for the government. So far, they're not in favour, and nor is Labour.
As it stands, we cannot support this deal and will oppose it in Parliament on Saturday. And it also is unclear if he has the support of his allies in the DUP or indeed many of his allies on his own backbenches.
And as the clock ticks towards the Brexit deadline of October the 31st, the EU says there's no reason for any further delays.
There is not an argument for further delay. It has to be done now.
Also tonight, the latest figures on crime in England and Wales. Knife crime hits a record high, more than 40,000 offences. We'll be looking at how schools are tackling the problem. Disappointment for the family of Jean McConville, who was killed by the IRA 40 years ago. The first prosecution linked to the case fails. The moment London Underground commuters decided they'd had enough of an Extinction Rebellion protest.
And in the sport on BBC News, George Ford is the surprise omission from the England team to face Australia in their Rugby World Cup quarter-final in Japan.
Good evening from Brussels, where earlier today it was announced that a new Brexit deal had been agreed between the UK and the EU as European leaders gathered here for their summit meeting. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, addressing a news conference right now, described it as a great new deal that takes back control. But crucially, the deal still needs the approval of both the UK and European parliaments. And at Westminster, there is considerable uncertainty about the likelihood of approval when MPs meet in emergency session this coming Saturday. Northern Ireland's DUP, whose support Boris Johnson does need, have already rejected it, and Labour says that the deal is much worse for the UK than the one negotiated by Theresa May. Our first report tonight on the deal itself is from our political editor, Laura Kuensberg.
He looks like he can't quite believe it.
How are you feeling, gentlemen?
It's only 7 days since the detailed talks really got going. Not even 100 days into Boris Johnson's time in office. And part one of his biggest job is complete.
We have a deal.
After late nights and early mornings, there is a new Brexit agreement.
I do think that this deal represents a very good deal both for the EU and for the UK. And it's a reasonable, fair outcome. And I hope very much now, speaking of elected representatives, that my fellow MPs in Westminster do now come together to get Brexit done, to get this excellent deal over the line, and to deliver Brexit without any more delay.
That's part two of the task, much harder. Many MPs will deplore the deal.
Prime Minister, how will you get this through Parliament when your allies in Northern Ireland still aren't on board?
The agreement's not totally different to the one agreed by the former Prime Minister who used to walk the red carpet here. But EU leaders did finally accept that the backstop, the controversial border guarantee for Northern Ireland, had to go. There was enough political will, so there was a way.
As things stand, we have a draft agreement between the European Union on the one hand and the British government on the other, and also creates a unique solution for Northern Ireland, recognising the unique history and geography of Northern Ireland, one which ensures that there is no hard border between north and south.
Let's rejoice in which a deal has been found.
But the numbers are achingly tight in Parliament. If it falls on Saturday, what then?
People are in favour of Brexit or against Brexit. It's really not the matter. This is now if we are going to have a deal or a no deal.
What happens if this doesn't pass through Parliament?
But I'm not in charge of the parliamentary ratification in Britain. That's the job of Boris.
But do you believe that it will?
I hope it will. I'm convinced it will. But it has to.
It has to, but if it doesn't?
Anyway, there will be no prolongation.
There will be no prolongation, no delay.
Could there be an extension?
No delay? Even if the deal falls? Not if the opposition's got anything to do with it.
And we believe the deal he's proposed is heading Britain in the direction of a deregulated society with a sell-off of national assets to American corporations. So, as it stands, we cannot support this deal and will oppose it in Parliament on Saturday.
Reaching a new deal, solving the political conundrums with Brussels, is by any measure a big political achievement. The EU has moved in ways that just a couple of weeks ago they swore publicly would simply never happen. But to reach there, Boris Johnson has, of course, had to compromise too. So he runs smack into the very next problem. Because a deal that works for this town might not work for Parliament, where there's a vital vote in 2 days' time. MPs who fear the consequences of the deal are talking, plotting perhaps to block it, not least Boris Johnson's supposed unionist allies.
In order to avoid trying to get an extension, he has been too eager by far to get a deal at any cost. And the fact of the matter is that if he held his nerve and held out, he would of course got better concessions which kept the integrity, both economic and constitutional, of the United Kingdom.
Other Brexiteers dangling their support.
I'm reserving my position on this because I really want to read what's in it, because we were told by the government throughout in discussions that certain concerns were being met within this agreement, and I just want to make sure that that's the case.
And the parties who want to stay in the EU will work together to stop it happening.
What is coming out of Brussels is that he's actually managed to negotiate something that is even worse for our economy than what Theresa May had put forward. We're talking about an act of economic vandalism which would be worse for the economy than the financial crash.
It's hard to imagine a deal that could be worse for Scotland. It's worse even than Theresa May's deal. It takes Scotland out of the EU, out of the single market, out of the customs union, all against our will. It would put us at a competitive disadvantage with Northern Ireland.
If his political enemies win, Westminster will try to send Boris Johnson packing straight back to Brussels to ask for a delay. What would happen then? Is this the end of the road for a deal?
If this deal doesn't pass through Parliament, is this as far as the EU is prepared to go? Is this finally the final deal?
Visibly, not something they want to contemplate. Don't ask a question that doesn't arise, the negotiator said. It's a hypothesis, but one that might soon be true. Not what Boris Johnson or his apparent new friends want to think about tonight, but they may all want to enjoy this while it lasts. Laura Koonsberg, BBC News, Brussels.
Well, as soon as the New Deal was published today, there was immediate scrutiny of those areas that have hampered agreement in the past. Now, the deal says that if the UK leaves on the 31st of October, it will pay around £33 billion to the EU in a so-called divorce bill. It says EU and UK citizens will retain their residency and their social security rights. And it says there will be a period until the end of December 2020 where the UK will still abide by the EU's rules to give time to negotiate new trading arrangements. But there are still strong reservations surrounding what the deal means for Northern Ireland. Those reservations clear among members of the Democratic Unionist Party. So here with a look at the detail of this new Brexit deal and to explain what might happen next is our Deputy Political Editor, John Pienaar.
Well, a plan that pleased everyone was never going to happen. Boris Johnson calls this one an excellent deal, though for Remainers it's the worst yet. It takes mainland Britain out of the EU trading bloc and allows the whole UK to strike trade deals which they fear would leave us worse off than in the EU. For the DUP and their staunch unionist allies, the big sticking point has been how to keep Northern Ireland inside those trade deals while avoiding customs checks north or south that could inflame old tensions. The DUP doesn't like it, but the new plan is for an east-west customs border. All north-south trade would be duty-free, no checks or taxes. But the DUP hates the plan for checks on all goods from the British mainland to Northern Ireland. Why? Well, take a British car, say. Customs would need to know if it's for sale in Northern Ireland, no taxes to pay, or if it's heading for the Republic and into the EU, because if some components came from outside the EU, there could be taxes to pay to Brussels. So, with Northern Ireland being treated differently, the deal accepts the need for agreement from its politicians. A simple majority vote at the still-suspended Stormont Assembly could decide to tear up the plan and let Northern Ireland be treated the same as the rest of the UK. The DUP think it's better to have a majority of both them and the Nationalists, which would allow them, in effect, to have a veto. In the Commons, the numbers must surely make Boris Johnson's head spin. To win, he needs 320 votes. If the DUP's 10 MPs won't back him, some of his 287 Tories would likely rebel too. So the PM needs votes from among Labour MPs and some former Tory independents. And there's another big complication. Remain parties like the Lib Dems and the SNP could soon join MPs on both sides in a big push for another Brexit referendum. And if Jeremy Corbyn tells Labour to back a so-called people's vote, it could make the government's job a lot harder.
That was John Pienaar with his analysis there. And as we know, and as we've been reporting repeatedly, one of the big obstacles, one of the big sticking points has been the future of the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Our Ireland correspondent Emma Vardy is in Belfast this evening with the latest for us. Emma?
Well, so much of the detail in the Brexit deal that we've been hearing about is all about how to facilitate trade here. But it's not just all those arrangements for VAT and customs that unionists in Northern Ireland are objecting to. Their concerns go much deeper than that. And if you just take a trip across this city, you'll see that it's also the identities of communities that matters here. Like a patchwork quilt, Belfast is imprinted with reminders of Northern Ireland's dual identity. While nationalists have fought for closer ties to the EU, unionist politicians have pulled the other way. Today's deal divides these communities again.
I think it's ridiculous that the unionist community is holding everybody to ransom. They just don't think of anybody but themselves.
Anything Catholics like, they automatically are against it. It doesn't matter what it is.
In unionist areas of this city, it's viewed very differently. For those who identify as British, the arrangements for trade in the Brexit deal strike at something deeper. A fear that closer alignment with Ireland and the EU undermines Northern Ireland's very place in the United Kingdom itself.
Hi, Emma. Nice
Hi.
to meet you.
Hi.
It's at the back of their minds, no matter what it looks like, there's always that fear. The enemies are to the south of them, the enemies are to the east of them, the enemies are right in the heart in the Northern Ireland Assembly. And when you live in that fear, it's almost like a permanent paranoia. When you live with that all the time, you tend not to see rainbows, you just see thunder.
The new deal could end 3 years of uncertainty for Northern Ireland's businesses. Companies have often found themselves caught in the middle amidst a bitter political divide.
I am proud to be British, but I'm running a business.
John McCann runs one of many farming and food companies that believe if this Brexit deal fails, their supply chain will no longer work.
My staff are demoralised. We can't plan for the future.
The DUP argue they're digging in very hard against this deal to protect business for Northern Ireland.
The DUP are certainly not helping us.
The Brexit deal requires Northern Ireland to stay in sync with some EU rules to avoid checks on the border. It gives Stormont a vote on whether these arrangements should continue. But the Assembly hasn't sat for more than 2.5 years since power sharing collapsed, a symbol itself of Northern Ireland's irreconcilable divides. Emma Vardy, BBC News, Belfast.
Well, with me here in Brussels at the summit is our Europe editor, Katja Adler. Katja, so they did the deal. Who gave most ground here? Because somebody must have done.
Well, absolutely, Hugh, because about a week ago we were saying this is never going to happen. What changed was Boris Johnson had a change of heart. That's what the EU is saying in negotiations, that he seemed to have come to a conclusion. In order not to have to ask for another Brexit extension, he needed a deal. And suddenly he was giving ground on customs, on regulations for Northern Ireland after Brexit, coming much closer to the EU's position. But the EU has also given, do you remember, we're not reopening the withdrawal agreement, they said after they'd had that agreement with Theresa May and Parliament rejected it. They have reopened it. They've also given a kind of a consent mechanism to the power sharing government in Northern Ireland, which is something new for them as well. And crucially, both sides have managed to keep kind of their bottom line. Boris Johnson gets to say that Northern Ireland legally will leave the customs union, the EU customs union, after Brexit. The EU protects the single market and the Northern Ireland peace process on the island of Ireland after Brexit. So it's a mixed deal.
Crucially, what plan, if any, do these leaders have in the event that MPs on Saturday actually turn this deal down?
Well, they're worried about it because, of course, they've been there before. About a year ago, they signed off another Brexit deal with Theresa May. Actually, the two deals are pretty similar, actually, Hugh. So what happens? Boris Johnson has told EU leaders in there today that he's sure that this deal will pass on Saturday. Those EU leaders are not so sure. They're being coy today about the idea of another Brexit extension because they want to focus MPs' minds on this deal. But if the deal fails and there's a possibility of a general election, a second referendum or a referendum on this deal, these leaders who've been wanting to avoid no deal all this time and taken part in the Brexit process and two Brexit deals, they're not going to slam the door on the UK's face then. They would grant another extension if they were asked.
Katja, once again, thanks very much. Katja Adler there with her analysis here at the summit in Brussels. And after that, if you're still thinking about questions that need to be answered, and there are plenty about this new deal or Brexit in general, why don't you go to bbc.co.uk/news and navigate there to Brexit, your questions answered, and hopefully you'll find the answer to your question at that point. So it's all there for you on the BBC News website. Now back to George for the rest of the day's news.
Hugh, thank you very much.